Hello, hello, community. How are you doing? It is such a blessing to see you for the fourth annual uh, Day of Visioning. It has been such a blessing to continue this tradition for the last 4 years, to share good energy with you all and to share so much love. It is a blessing today to connect again with Dr. Sean Ginwright, who is a dear friend, as you all know. And I could not be happier to invite him into this stream. We started with him, and I am so excited to bring him back into the stream. So let's see if we can't find him. Let's see, let's see. If you are logged into this live stream, please share with us how you're doing today and what you've been getting ready for in these coming 4 years. It's been one heck of a journey, huh? How's everybody doing? Please make a note. Awesome. I see Dr. Sean Ginwright. Dr. Sean Ginwright,
Hello.
how are you doing today on this beautiful day?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. I'm just so pleased that, just things are a lot better than they were 4 years ago.
Exactly. I was just reminiscing on that. I said, it's such a blessing to have this time with Sean. We started with him 4 years ago. It's our fourth annual. And, I'm traveling, you're traveling. We just wanted to get back to basics and take a quick minute to tap in. And so, what have you been doing for the last 4 years, Dr. John Ginwright?
I've been traveling. I've been trying to really understand how we ended violence in 4 years. It is amazing,
right?
that now the way that we don't even use the term police anymore. It's amazing. So I've been really traveling around the world and the country, really trying to understand what really made this shift for us. So that we actually have a much more humane way of thinking about public safety in our cities. And it's so that's what I've been doing. I've been to Africa and South Africa, and I love the Caribbean, so I spend most of my time there now.
Right. That is awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you guys. I'll be visiting you for your birthday in December. I've already made those plans with Nedra. I'm really excited about that. So you've been traveling, you've been trying to understand how it is that we've made this change. From your perspective, what do you think it took? Like, what happened to us that made us realize that the way that we were moving wasn't serving us?
Well, I mean, I think a couple of things. I think there is always the possibility of transformation when we experience trauma. And I think that 4 years ago, the world experienced trauma. America experienced trauma.
Yeah.
There's something about what trauma does that it releases a humane ethic in all of us, and I think that our humanity was so it really touched our humanity, and so I think that ingredient really allowed for people to see that you just can't put cameras on police and believe that you have better policing.
Right.
You really have to focus on the values of a society, and I think that's what really made it shift. And I'm so glad to see that young people have led the way, and
right?
Young people have led the way, and it's really affirming to see.
It's super exciting. I look at the young people right now, and they're so fearless, Like, I think, maybe it's that they saw such trauma and they saw our response to the trauma, in 2020. Their way of leading us has been so dynamic, so passionate, so powerful. And they're so clear, like, don't give me no labels. Don't give me no labels.
Yeah.
You're not going to identify me by gender or race. I had this one kid roll up on me the other day. I was doing a workshop, and this kid said, "There's only one." It was the cutest thing. Rolled his eyes and everything. There's only one race, and that is the human race. So by definition, racism is self-hate. I about fell out. I was like,
Oh, wow. Yes, yes, yes,
yes.
yes.
By definition, racism is self-hate. I was done. I was like, yes,
By
yes,
definition.
you
Yeah,
know? And just to be at this space, like in 4 short years, so much has changed. And like you said, we started with dealing with police brutality and police violence, but then we came to realize that the way that racism shows up, maybe in its most violent ways in America, were through our police officers. But there were so many other dynamic ways that, I think we fortunately have developed some good tools, at least in the States, where we are able to catch ourselves as my Auntie Jay back in 2020 used to say, cancel, cancel.
yeah,
She, when you catch a bad thought, you cancel that thought. And it's just been so inspiring to see how dynamically businesses and business structure has changed,
yeah,
and how it's not a redistribution of wealth in the sense that those who were wealthy before had to give up what they had, but that we remembered that the earth has got everything that we need to thrive. And so I think one of the changes everywhere in the US. Like,
you broke up a little bit.
how did that happen?
Jen, you broke up
I
a
was
little
just
bit.
saying that one of the things that can you hear me now?
Yeah, it just froze. Yeah. Just,
Okay. I
yes.
know that they got a fiber down there in the Caribbean. You may need to holler at your service provider.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's amazing about how our financial systems are completely different. Is that
Completely different.
we have 100% employment? Like, how do we do that in 4 years? Right? That we've figured out a way to employ everybody so that there's a basic income necessary. Right? I think it's the young people's collective imagination about how can the richest nation on this earth actually use its resources to provide a humane economy for everyone.
Right.
So, I mean, the other day I was at the market in St. Thomas, and it was just amazing to see that everyone in St. Thomas had health care, and their cousins in New York had health care, and there was these blurred boundaries, right? It used to be called the U.S. Virgin Islands versus the British Virgin Islands. That doesn't exist anymore, right? That this ability to travel where you really don't even need a passport, because
Right.
the way that we see the world is as people are global citizens. And so young people had that collective imagination, and in 4 years made that happen. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
I was just telling somebody about this young woman. I was at a learning center in Ghana, um, where I spend most of my time. For those of you who are tuning in right now, and I'm so sorry, Sean and I don't get an opportunity to just shoot the mess. So I promise we'll get to the depths of it. But it's just really good to see your face, and so I just am just going for it, my brother. But I was at this learning center in Ghana. And this young girl, we're getting closer and closer to the space where we don't need passports. But this young woman, similar to the young man who was telling me that racism by definition was self-hate, which I thought was amazing, she was laughing about how silly it was that we weren't taking advantage of the world, like the wisdom of the world. And she was specifically talking to me about this Japanese auntie that she has and all of the medicines that she was learning about from Japan. So this Japanese auntie of hers had given her these seeds, and, bringing seeds from one country to another used to be like, just don't do it.
Yeah.
And I think that what's really deep now is that instead of a fear of control over land, it's more about education and information. So this young woman had taken these greens, had brought them to Ghana, had grown these greens, and they're like, they're
Wow.
all over the place. She made me this smoothie and so forth. And she was just laughing with me about that. She was proud. She was proud. She was proud of us for getting it together enough for her generation. And she let me know that I was old enough now that I could sit down and that she had it under control. And I just had to laugh. I'm nowhere right. I'm like, I'm nowhere near chilling out, little girl. But
Yeah.
it was just such an honor and such a blessing to look, these young people really have it under control, and they really know what it is to be a global citizen, and they
Yeah.
really know what it is to build wealth. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, businesses, it used to be that there was a 73% gap
Yeah.
between the CEO of a company and their workers in terms of wealth. And now, I mean, with NBA being a worker-owned cooperative and the NFL being a worker-owned cooperative and the NHL being a worker-owned cooperative, that I think that young people in general are going, I think maybe I just want to spread the wealth.
Yeah.
That's been so inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the whole way that we've done universal basic income, and
Right.
like I'm seeing right now, like my son, you know, has created his own production company, and the whole way that we're seeing Hollywood completely produce different kinds of movies and media production, right? Remember the only time you would see somebody black on the screen, you'd be like, "There's the first one that gonna die." Remember them days?
Yeah.
To see, like now you could go to you could watch a movie, a streamed movie right now, and it's a multiracial cast, and it's, you know, it's like, I think when we remember 5 years ago or 6 years ago, there's this Black Panther came out.
Right. Yes.
And all these movies that are in that same genre of just Black excellence and,
Yes.
and just this imagination of this whole new world. So it's just it's amazing what we can do when we focus and we dream.
And we choose it and we feel it in our souls and in our bodies. You know, there's a science to what happens when you focus your energy on something. And I think that what's dynamic about where we are 4 years later is that in 2020, we not only experienced a trauma, but we said never again.
Yeah.
And we meant it. We meant it. We meant it. We said never, ever again. There will never be something called slavery again. And we won't pretend to call it by another name. We said never again. We said we are done with patriarchy. We're done with oppression. And I think that a couple of things happened. One is that we realized that the world is a big place with a lot of resource, and that we weren't put on this planet without the ability to enjoy this earth. There's so many beautiful things to grow and to live through, you know, here on this earth. So I think that that's one of the things that has happened. And then the other was that we really have just chosen to trust one another.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that I know that I don't function in this world without your genius.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that for true now, you know.
And vice versa.
Yes, yes. Well,
and that's the whole way that we are connected. You know, when 4 years ago, I think people began to change their conversations about what they don't want.
Yes.
And they began to imagine and speak what they do want.
Yes.
And in doing that, it manifested a collective imagination.
Yes.
And that's what it produced what we are now. People start talking about, you know, after, you remember COVID happened, you know, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know it was so much uncertain, but it reshifted even how we think about a work day. So now schools start at 9 o'clock and go to 2 o'clock. Well, that makes you shift how you think about work, and people can work from home, and all of these kinds of things are a response to a collective imagination. People start talking about, well, we want a more humane work schedule.
Mm-hmm.
We want universal basic income. We want to end. We don't want to end it. We want to create a collective connected humanity, right? They started to talk in a different way. And I think this is ultimately how we got to where we are. And I think it's important that we continued to speak in the affirmative.
Which is why this is our fourth annual. I mean, after the first time that we did this and we asked everybody to take the whole day, I mean, 2020 Juneteenth, our first day of visioning, I get overwhelmed just thinking about it. Like, wow, what a intense time. You know, it was so painful, but I guess, you know, what we learned is that, you know, alchemy is rarely painless.
Yeah.
And, you know, we changed the world. But I remember sitting here with you in the same place 4 years ago, and asking people, well, what do you see the world looking like in 4 years?
Yeah.
I remember that, and I remember this spark of hope that happened for me. You know, I know that there was a special feeling that happened that morning that, for me at least, transformed the way that I moved. I had a belief and a hope. That's one of your words. I had a hope that something different was possible, and that something different was happening right here and right now. And then it did, and here we are. You know.
Yeah. And, you know, the science of hope, right? People think
Yes.
of hope as, you know, there's a sort of faith dimension of hope, but there's a science of hope. And
Yes.
hope is really, the human being is a very unique organism. A tree cannot think in the past or the future. They could prepare, all right? But a human being has the ability to see something before it exists. But sometimes what we see is filtered through fear. And as a result of that, the universe responds to that. And we have higher anxiety, higher levels of cortisol, right? But when we dream and imagine and hope, we lower cortisol and we produce another chemical called oxytocin. And oxytocin is a chemical that relaxes us, but it also creates bonding, right? If we didn't have mothers wouldn't bond to children, we wouldn't have families. Oxytocin is a bonding chemical, and it makes us actually stay connected. So when we do that, when we dream, when we think into the future, we actually transform our chemical makeup so that we actually have the kinds of relationships that are necessary to actually birth this new world.
Wow. And we have the calm to see the opportunities coming for us. You know, I think one of the things that I've seen so much, and one of the spaces where things have changed so dynamically, is, I mean, thank God for the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, and thank God for the defunding the police, which then led to closing the whole prison system, you know. And, you know, one of the things,
some mental health and well-being, right? Like these things that were called prisons are now like spas, hotels.
Right? Yo, I was at San Quentin a couple weeks ago, called chilling. Yo.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? That they're like spas now with like massage rooms and waterfalls and lakes. It's amazing.
What a concept. But you know, but what I know is that when people are experiencing the trauma of oppression in their minds, right, there can be a beautiful opportunity that's standing right in front of you, but because the cortisol is just, there's no space to see the opportunity and then seize the opportunity and then do something with it. And so this collective visioning that releases oxytocin, as you said, that creates this bonding, there's a trust, there's this belief that you want the best for me and I want the best for you. And so I'm calmer and more available to whatever ideas and opportunities and brilliance you may have to share for me. And because the whole world has evolved so much, there's so much that supports this idea now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I remember 10 years ago, you and I were talking about, you know, if you change your mind, you can change your life. You know what I mean? And I remember I used to go down to Agape all the time when they were in Beverly Hills. And, you know, and it would be all about if you change your mind, you change your life. And now people are like, wait, before I go out into the world, let me get my mind right.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about oppression, right? It erodes our ability to imagine, and it
Mm,
says you don't have the right to dream.
mm,
And it tells us that our full existence is to survive.
right,
And once we once we once we become once oppression becomes, we become married to it, like in that
mm, mm,
that sort of matrimony limits our ability to see and be and do something and to separate ourselves from it. And
right,
so the way that I think what happened 4 years ago is people began to recognize that, oh, there's another way, because the rules of oppression began to crumble beneath our feet, right?
right.
Those
But it was
rules.
also because we kept saying for so long, all you shall witness while Babylon fall. You
Yes,
remember those songs?
yes, yes,
Right?
yes,
Right?
yeah. We said it first, right? So, and those rules are changing. When the rules start changing, people start
Mhm.
going, huh, maybe we could rewrite some other ones, the
Here's an
possibility.
idea.
Yeah.
Well, I am so grateful for your time this morning. I know that you need to get back to your boat, and you probably can't see. I have my swimsuit on as well. There you
Yeah.
go. Yes, sir. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. And we have some folks that are in the live stream, and we have had 4 years of transformation. We have changed structures like what we used to call the prison industrial complex. Oh, man.
we need a
Wow.
we need a new name, like
We
the peace something. I don't know.
I don't know. I just remember the day that Lonnie came home from San Quentin, and we worked really, really hard with just all kinds of organizers to find a way to heal the brothers that had been unjustly kept there for so long.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that's so powerful and so brilliant and about how resilient the mind really is that these brothers are now leading. I mean, Lonnie was always teaching us how to be better, but these brothers are now leading us in forgiveness. They're now leading us in meditation. They're now showing us what it means to create a community where you really care for everybody.
Yeah.
And that is so dynamic. So to look at, we've changed what we used to call the prison industrial complex, and now we have symposiums about healing in these very same places where everybody gets to eat together real food. And, that's so dynamic. We've changed financial structures in such a short period of time. I mean, the World Bank ain't out here trying to charge Black countries 5 and 10 times the percentage on a loan as you would European countries. We've watched the dynamic change in business. I mean, how if you had told me 5 years ago that the NBA, that the NFL was going to be a worker-owned cooperative when they were trying to have a meltdown because Kaepernick was trying to kneel. If
Right.
you had told me then, I'd have been like, yeah, I don't really know. I think
Yeah.
I sooner would have thought it would have been a done deal. I thought it would have been over. I
Yeah.
certainly didn't think that we was going to do that, to look at the difference in education, to look at the difference in healthcare. And I think that's part of the reason why globally we're able to move with a certain level of ease,
Yeah.
because other countries aren't worried about their people being taken care of in America, the richest
Yeah.
country in the world.
I was talking to some superintendents the other couple weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, it's normal for us to send our entire school to Thailand, and they're there for 2 weeks, and the kids from Thailand come over here in Oakland for 2 weeks, and there's an exchange. That's just normal now."
Right. And for us, we're sitting there like,
we're like, "Damn, I didn't get that."
It happened so fast in 4 years. I'm like, I want to go back to elementary school.
Yeah.
You know, all of our kids are multilingual. It's so amazing. I am, again, I'm grateful for your time, Dr. Jenwright, and I will see you in December for your birthday, where we will act a whole fool.
Yeah.
So help you God.
I'll be in the Exumas then. So you just
I'll get
you
there. I'll get
find
there.
out where the Exumas are. Come on.
I will definitely get there. Awesome. Well, let us conclude this section of our conversation. We've got lots of people that are in the chat now. And I just wanted to ask, did you guys appreciate or understand what just happened? What we just did? Did you guys understand the energy, and how did it make you feel to watch this conversation that we just had? Janet Sawyer said people have been using Mirroring Your Vision, which is her book, using the Mirroring Your Vision process to identify their God-given gift. They began to share their gift and purpose, and then the world became more prosperous and caring. I can attest to that for sure. I absolutely used Mirroring Your Vision in 2020, and I use it every time I'm creating something new. So absolutely, that is the case for sure. Carolina said, so grateful for the visioning on this promising day.
Yeah.
It's super inspiring too, because I feel like, you know, Juneteenth is a day that commemorates 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
Yeah.
It was the day, a lot of people say it's the day that enslaved Africans were free. No.
Are you froze?
That's the important distinction to make.
You
For a
froze.
second, are you there?
Yeah, you froze. And
you there?
Yeah, I can hear you now, but you had froze for a second. But I got what you were saying about 2.5 years of when Africans in Texas were like, say, hey, we didn't get the memo. Yeah.
You know, and now now we're at a place where this day around the world is about freedom for all, right? Like the idea, the overstanding that 405 years later, that this atrocity that happened to people in dark skin called slavery, we've just learned new ways of healing, and I'm super proud. Let's see. Someone else says, I'm so appreciative of the time we're in. People are now more receptive of the ancient knowledge and are freeing themselves and their families.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I just hope, I love how the visioning process gives me such a feeling of hope, and I just hope that people become more aware of the conversations they're having today, and begin to really just speak and say and vision and confidently imagine in our language, because the universe will respond to it.
Right. Ranu says, thank you. A lot of tears here. It works, this process. Such an inspiration in Janet's book too. Yes, it does. Thank you for sharing about the youth. And we're not ready to sit down, but I'm ready to take a supportive role and learn from one another. Ashe, thank you, Kiki. Yes, absolutely. Well, I will let you get back to your boat, sir.
I got some plantains to cook.
Same. I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. You all enjoy your brilliant day. And remember, every Juneteenth, every day that we commemorate the awareness of freedom, that this day is a day of visioning. Yes. And so I'm so grateful to vision this day with you on June 19th, 2024. And I look forward to continuing to imagine a better world and experiencing it with all of you.
Thank you for your brilliance and your light, Jen Johns.
Likewise.
All right. Bye-bye.